and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, I'm in a tent, and this is Safari Live.
Ready.
Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Well, that was a very rushed good morning to you, so let me say it very calmly and collectedly, good morning. My name is James Henry, David is on camera, and we are in the safari tent this morning. We're in the safari tent because outside, moisture is falling from a very thick blanket of cloud that has covered the lowveld, and it is giving that great blessing, of course, of Africa, rain. Out there in the field, who is feeling slightly less than blessed, Brent Smith, and Jamie is trying to fit a roof to Jigger so that she too might join him in soaking herself. And I must just say at this juncture that last night, just before we all went to bed, I said to Brent, would you like to walk in the morning? And he said, oh no, and he sort of touched his left hip like this. I don't think I can walk tomorrow morning. So I said, no problem, I'll walk. And then as the rain started to fall down this morning, of course, suddenly he decided that it would have been a good idea for him to walk, because the walker comes to the tent, you see. So I said, and now he, of course, is very wet, and David and I are dry and comfortable here in the tent. Now, we are going to require your help for the length of time that it keeps raining. Well, we always require your help, but especially during a drive like this, when, of course, we're in the tent, we need to have a conversation. It's always good to have a chat to you, but let's try and generate some good chat while we're in here. Obviously, there's less to see in the tent than there is outside of it, but in the rain, the cameras do struggle. So hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarthTV. You can ask us anything you like about Africa, about South Africa, about the wilderness, about any creatures. Let's talk about the natural world. And we'll have some good conversations here from the tent and try and join them up with whatever is being seen in the field by Brent Smith, who is looking a little bit like a drowned rat at this stage. Good. Now, the first thing I found this morning was the smell of snake when we came in here. This is not a snake. This is, in fact, a piece of rope. It's used for decoration from time to time. We're not entirely sure why it's in here, but it is quite useful from time to time, like I say. And the smell of snake is very distinctive, and I'll just show you what was smelling. It was a piece of skin found the other day, and it is a black mamba skin. Now, I mean, were you ever to see a black mamba this size, or any kind of black mamba, you would be deeply afraid, and you would be deeply afraid with good reason. Look at it. Isn't it terrifying? Oh. Yes. That would be able to inject enough venom to kill you with almost just a look. Anyway, this black mamba skin smells like snake, unsurprisingly. And snake smells, especially when it's wet like this, like I don't know if you've ever been around a huge sink full of washing, and a huge sink full of washing that has not been washed properly and has that kind of eggy smell to it. That's what this smells like. And I walked in here and I thought, oh, gosh, there must be a snake in here. Looked under the desks, and eventually we found the skin. Thankfully, it wasn't the original owner of the skin. All right, Brent Smith has managed to sufficiently cajole himself into a state where he would like to bid you a fond and very wet good morning.
Hello. Welcome to a wet Djuma private game reserve. Isn't the rain glorious? My name is Brent Smith, and we have our interviewee Desmond on camera. Now, because it is wet and rainy, I'm looking for some of my favorite things. Frogs being number one on that list, and maybe as it gets a bit lighter with all the termite alates around, we might get some fantastic views of some of the aquila eagles and other birds munching on the high-protein snack that is a future termite king or queen. Oh, we've got spiders inside our tent. So we have our own, very own mobile tent at the moment. So we've got a roof on, we've got our rain covers on, and if the rain stays like this, it's good news. We should be able to keep moving. If it gets too hard, we'll just drop the sides and close ourselves in. Remember, this is a live safari, albeit a damp one, and you can ask us questions by using the hashtag #SafariLive on Twitter, or email us a question at questions@WildEarth.tv. Now, of course, my singing voice is terrible, but I think we should convince James to burst into song and sing us Singing in the Rain. I think he might fight us on this, but I think if we get enough tweets in, so if you want James to sing Singing in the Rain, send it through to hashtag #SafariLive. Beg him, goad him, poke him, get him to sing Singing in the Rain. Of course, out of all of us out here, he is going to remain the most dry. Morning, Kathy. Kathy would like to know, are flying termites male or female, and do they bite like soldier termites? Well, they can bite, but it's not nearly as painful as the bite of a soldier, and the reason for that being is their mouth parts aren't that developed. Now, they are both male and female. It is the future kings and queens, or queens and drones to be exact, of the termite race. Now, I've actually seen 3 or 4 different species of termite alates out this morning, and the biggest one we've seen is probably from the northern harvester termite, and that is the favorite food of a lot of the aquila eagles, particularly the lesser spotted and steppe eagles, although all the big birds of prey, even the massive martial eagle with a wingspan of nearly 7 feet, will eat termites. That's how rich they are in protein. There's this spider webs. Now we are going to go. I don't know. It's rained more than the other night, but not that much yet. But if this rain sticks around and this weather sticks around, a good soaking of the earth is what is needed. So sometimes rain like this is much better than a large storm that dumps quickly and moves on. This rain dumps slowly over a period of time, and it enables the water, the ground, to actually soak it up. It doesn't just run off towards the little river systems. Again. Now, we are checking around the treehouse waterhole area, and fingers crossed, well, I don't think we're going to see any tracks today, so we have to rely on bumping a big cat in this weather. So let's hope our bumping luck is on fire. So while we continue our search for amphibians, mammals, reptiles, and of course the many insects around, let's go say a very good morning to a slightly damp Jamie Patterson.
And a very good morning to all of you, and welcome to our very damp sunrise safari. My name is Jamie, and this morning I have a very damp Brian on camera with me. Brian, how's the thumb? Is the thumb... The thumb stayed at home! The thumb got to stay in bed because of the rain. Oh, lucky thumb. We're happy to be out and about. We are very damp and covered in flying ant wings. That's pretty much been our start to the morning. They appear to be sort of damply fused to every part of the vehicle. I had 3 in my coffee this morning. 3 flying ants, which is not my record. But it is an interesting way to start. A flying ant, of course, is an alate, a reproductive member of a termite colony, and they erupt after the rain. Brent always talks about the eruption. Well, we are definitely experiencing the eruption of termites, which is wonderful because it means we could see snakes, we could see frogs, we could see birds. They're going to be a little bit bedraggled, but basically we're going to be doing a wonderful rain drive, and I'm quite excited. There we go. Once Upon a Time says that they would really like to see frogs. I would also really... Out of my eye, flying ant. My coffee's fine, my eye is not. I would really like to see frogs as well. I haven't seen that many this year. And most of them, in fact all of them, have not been whilst we're on our safari. So I'm quite looking forward to frogs. I'm looking forward to snakes. Looking forward to all sorts of things. Feeling slightly dripped on, Roof. You and I need to have a little discussion in a moment about that. Okie dokie. Let's go and see what we can find. I'm also going very, very, very slowly. We are driving Wendy this morning, which is one of our vehicles. We have 3. I'll just cover that over as well, since it is mission critical. We have 3 vehicles, and one of them, Wendy, isn't really meant to be serviceable, so hopefully she survives. Oh, it sounds as though Mr. Henry is up early and he might have found the very thing we've been looking for.
I'm not entirely sure what I found here, but I think, given its size, that it's a pygmy toad, except having looked at the picture of the pygmy toad, I'm not sure that that's true. Now, what we're going to do is have a look at it under the microscope. Just simply, I mean, that's a pretty good view you've got there. But let's have a look under the microscope, because he really does quite cool. Oh, hang on. Hang on. It's a little difficult to do. There we go. How cool is he? Now, the reason I actually don't think he's a toad is because he's got that very flat face. Oh, sorry, the microscope is really playing up a little bit now. There we are. So I think that flat face tells me that he isn't perhaps a toad. He might be a frog of some sort. So any ideas what frog this is? #Safari Live questions at WildEarthTV. Look at his colours. What I'll do is quickly move the microscope round onto the top of his face. Oh, he's climbed into it now. No, you can't go in there. There we are. Let's just put it on top of his body here. Come on, man. It's so deeply frustrating because it doesn't move the same way you think it's going to. Hang on a sec. There we go. It'll work. There we are. There's his skin. That's the top of his skin, and I think you'll find that a pygmy toad's more warty than this. But I'm not a great genius when it comes to amphibians, and I find that every time we come to summertime, I've forgotten half of what I used to know by the time the rain ended. Anyway, so we'll find out what this little frog is during the course of the drive. And he too is waiting to eat the termite alates that are around. I was trying to find one of those to show you under the microscope when I caught this fellow. Anyway, I'm going to keep him with me for a little while, and hopefully he'll be able to be released fairly soon once he's identified, and we can set him out to find the much smaller species of alates. So I think that's probably what he's going to be going for. Now, I believe that many of you were wondering about snakes out here, and I will tell you that we found a snake in the box where we plug in everything this morning. I was sort of fossicking about in there, trying to find where all the wires go early this morning, and there was a snake in the back. Tiny little brown thing, I think probably a brown house snake, hopefully. It definitely wasn't a cobra, and that's the thing you've got to worry about. Sheila, you're wondering in London, of course, about that black mamba skin and what happened or how long it took that enormous snake to get out of his skin. I don't know how long it takes, Sheila. I think it probably varies per snake. It probably varies on the age of the snake. But that that skin's about 3 meters long, which is about 9 or 10 feet. And so I think you'll probably find it took him, I don't know, once they've hooked it into the branches, I don't think it would take much longer than, say, an hour or two. And it's crucial, of course, that it doesn't take longer than that, because then they are very vulnerable. And even a black mamba is vulnerable, especially to birds that might want to try and bite it and eat it. So I think they have to get rid of the skin pretty quickly, otherwise they would become too vulnerable. And they often do it out in the open. You know, they hook it into a thorn. They sort of rub the nose off first. They'll find a hard surface and sort of break the skin around the nose area, and then it starts to come off the head, and then they'll hook it into a thorn and sort of wriggle out from there. And they can't afford to do that. Well, it's impossible to do it inside a hole or somewhere that isn't exposed, because obviously there aren't thorns other than in exposed areas. So I think they have to do it pretty quickly. I wouldn't say that it took that mamba much longer than an hour to get out of its skin before it slithered off and found something else to eat. Marvelous. Brent Leo Smith is carrying on the amphibian theme for the day. Let's go and find out what he has.
I've found one of my favorite froggies. Yay! I'm just trying to set up my spotlight. So wait, let's try this one. How's that, Desmond? Is he in the light? Oh, it's actually, I think this is actually a she. But look at that grotesque belly. It is so full of flying ants. I don't think she can move. Okay, I'm going to jump out and have a quick look. Now, this is one of my favorites, as I said. It's a bush-veld rain frog. But this one is ridiculously fat, and it is a lady rain frog. The males, this one does have it, normally have a very mottled chest, and they do look like grumpy old men. Let's turn. I know you're very fat from all the termites, but you need to turn to show everyone how grumpy you look this morning. Now, you should be happy, not grumpy. How's that? Let me come have a look at the monitor. That is literally the fattest bush-veld rain frog I've ever seen. Look at that. Now, they do definitely look like grumpy old men. This is a grumpy old lady, though. It is literally, it is so fat. It's ridiculous. Now, the reason I say it's a female, it's quite big. The males are a little bit smaller. And also, they generally have a much darker throat. Now, with frogs, that's not always the case. So here I'm probably just going off size that it is a female. Now, they have a very interesting life cycle in comparison to most frogs. And the thing is, so they do not have any webbing in between their toes, so they're not great swimmers. And they are great diggers. So, also with that very strange body shape and those very short legs, very fat body, it's very difficult for them to mate successfully. So the female will actually secrete a substance that causes the male to stick to her back, and then once she has finished mating, she will dig backwards into a burrow and lay up to about 45 quite big eggs for a small frog inside the burrow. And of course they are covered in inside they actually develop far more than normal tadpoles inside the egg, and the female will actually stay close to that nest and guard them till they come out as little froglets on their own to go have a look at what else. Now, I'm really hoping that we can add more frogs to our frog list. I've now discovered on my new frog app there is a way to, there we go, there is a way to just ding, and I add it to the list. So this is my first frog of the year on the list, and hopefully we're going to add some more. I really hope we find a Mozambican rain frog. Very similar, except it looks like a fat little strawberry. It's like pink and orange, but we never know. I have seen them in the Sabi Sands before, never in this area, but it is always possible. So there we go. 2 amphibians already this morning. We did predict some amphibians to be out and about. hello, Bethany. Bethany would like to know whether we have tree frogs in South Africa. Yes, indeedy, Bethany. We've got quite a few different types. The most common tree frog we get in our area is called the grey tree frog or the foam nest frog. We actually have two that live in our room and help keep the mosquito populations under control. One lives on Jamie's jacket where it hangs in the cupboard. Now, they are also the ones that make those big white nests that we find around water holes. Oh dear, there's that bushwalk alarm. I'm not on bushwalk today. I should maybe take that off. Okay. Now, we're going to keep looking for frogs. Good morning, Michael. Michael would like to know whether there are any poisonous frogs in South Africa. Now, toads are also frogs, and quite a lot of the toad species are poisonous, especially toads of the family Bufo. So I think James had a toad, and I don't know if he showed you those raised things behind a toad's eye. Those are called Bufo glands, and they secrete a noxious substance when the frog is disturbed. Now, if you've ever had a dog or a cat that attacks certain toad or frog species, they start frothing at the mouth. That's the Bufo toxins. It's generally not fatal, but it's generally enough to create such an unpleasant taste that they are able to escape. Now, the other noxious frog that we get here has got one of my favorite frog calls. It's also a very pretty frog. It's called a banded rubber frog. And the call goes, let's see, I'm going to play you the call, and I'm going to do my imitation of the call, and let's see, you can decide which is how far off I am. So the banded rubber frog goes like this. And that, oh, wow, raining on me, stop it. They're a very, very pretty frog. And let's just have a quick look here. Froggy frogs. Okay. Rain frogs. No, we want rubber frogs. Leaf folding frogs. There's lots of different types of frogs. Snoring frogs, snoring puddle frogs. Where are the rubber frogs? Why are they so far down this list? Because I've probably gone straight past them. Ah, there we go. Banded rubber frog. So let me show you a picture of them first. Isn't that cool? So, like very noxious frog species like you find in South America, you do get that aposematic coloring, red and black, warning creatures that it is not nice to eat. Okay, let's put the volume on, and let's... Oh, why are you not playing the song of the frog? Come on, let's play the song. Okay, you ready? Let's see. Does it sound anything like I just did? I think my pitch was a bit off. I needed to be a bit higher. It is a very, very cool call, and I'm hoping. Generally, we need a bit more rain and the little pans to become a little bit more full before we start hearing the rubber frogs constantly. But we're going to continue our search for everything amphibian, and while we do that, let's go see how Jamie is doing.
I might not have found a frog just yet, but I have found our first somewhat bedraggled large mammal of the morning in the form of this herd of kudu being photobombed by flying ants everywhere. And yes, all of the animals out here are actually quite skittish, which always happens in this sort of weather. They'll start to relax again as it gets a little bit lighter. Luckily, it's not windy, so whilst for them last night was dark, rainy, and probably very scary, this morning's not too bad. And it's not too bad having a little bit of rain. It means you don't have to go for your morning drink. You can just eat the leaves and get the dew at the same time, or the rain, the moisture off the leaves. Hello, girlie. They are still a little bit skittish, so I'm going to let them move slowly before we reposition. Definitely looking somewhat damp, and unfortunately for all of the animals out here, when weather like this hits, they don't have any roofs, they don't have any way of sheltering, they just have to lump it. A lot of them do move into dense vegetation, so often we find on drives like this, it's quite quiet, but it is also perfect big cat weather. They're often far more active and mobile. Just gently with Wendy. She doesn't want to do much moving. Hello, ladies. All watching us with those. Yes, have a good shake. In the settling rain. And actually, for many of our animals, this rain will actually be a true, well, obviously, not just because it's going to be a truly positive force, not just because it's going to make the grass grow and the trees green, but it is also because many of them, and I'm sure you must have noticed with not just the lions, not just with the Styx Pride and the Nkuhumas, but with Impala, Nyala, a lot of the animals out here after the drought have come away with some sort of mange infection, or infestation is probably a better word. And the rain is the one thing that helps to heal them. It just washes away the mites, it makes it harder for them to survive, and as a result, most of the animals out here will recover from it. But there are definitely a few very patchy looking impala, Kudu less so, but there's definitely been a few bald antelope, or almost bald antelope. I wonder if they know. I think it must feel good for those of them that have that itchy skin affliction. I can hear the frogs, Brian. Loud and clear. Predominantly olive-toed. Croaking away. Now we just have to find one. I want to see a bushveld rain frog. There is one right here somewhere that is so loud. Aaron in New Zealand, you want to know if there are any animals that specialize in catching frogs. None that I would say specialize in it, just because, of course, frogs are so seasonal. But there are quite a few that capitalize on them. So snakes are a big one. Frogs, very often when you have frogs, there are snakes in the vicinity. Snakes are very big eaters of frogs. And then little animals like genets and civets will occasionally snap up the odd frog. And of course, I know that Brent was telling you about the banded rubber frog. That is one frog that doesn't have to be too concerned about the actions of predators. And then every now and again, some of the smaller bird species will also go for frogs as well. And by that I mean smaller raptor species, not your lilac-breasted rollers or your drongos. I mean things like little goshawks might also snatch up a frog or two. Legavans or rock monitors, serious hunters of frogs. And terrapins, of course, will also prey on frogs' eggs and tadpoles if they can catch them. And what's going to be frantically happening now, which is why these frogs are croaking away. Oh, crocodiles. Sorry, Aaron. That's actually one animal that really does specialize. Baby crocodiles. We tend to think of crocodiles as these massive creatures that love to catch wildebeest, passing wildebeest, and Thompson's gazelle, as we saw with James in the Mara. But actually, considering how long it takes a crocodile to reach its full size, there are a lot of hatchlings swimming around that are this big that will prey off something like a crocodile. And the reason why, just straight after the rain, you get this chorus of frog calls is because they know the puddles are coming. And what they want to do is breed as quickly as possible, lay their eggs in a puddle, in a temporary puddle, and they do that on purpose. It's not because they're stupid and they've made a mistake and the water source is going to dry up and their tadpoles won't make it. It's because there's a far less chance of crocodiles inhabiting temporary puddles, which means that their offspring have a better chance of surviving. So that's why there is this frantic chorus of frogs as soon as it starts to rain. They're all desperately seeking company. And Connor, you say, can we expect to see a lot of the frogs' predators today? I'm hoping so. I suspect, though, our a lot of our sightings are going to be flying ant based rather than frog based. Now the clever things about frogs is that they have a ventriloquist effect to the way in which they call, which is why I didn't jump out and go immediately searching for that frog that was calling next to us, because I know it could actually take me quite a while. It could take me a long time. They are able to throw their voices, so it's much harder to pin them down. And most of their predators, of course, are either aquatic or they are nocturnal. I'm not sure whether Kirsty wants to see the view that is just around the corner, just to give you an idea of how the rain has set in. It is just round this corner. Let's check we're not going to miss a leopard just because we're thinking it's quiet out here. Just to give you guys an idea of what is on its way. This is good rain. This is proper summer rain. This is what we should have had last year and we never did. And we're all overjoyed. Okay, let's go to one of my favorite view sites. This is one of the best views on Djuma. One of the best places to see what's going on. And the answer to what's going on is it's quite rainy. I didn't quite bank on that angle of that roof, but nevertheless, you can have a roof and some dribbles. My apologies. The best view on Djuma, including the roof. Sorry about that. I had sort of hoped I would dodge it. Well, with that idea well and truly flummoxed, let's go over to James and have a look at what he's got in the tent.
I still haven't identified my little frog, everyone. Anyway, I'm going to give you one last look at him, and then you can try and tell me what you think he is. The thing to note here is that he's got a very flat face, a little bit like that rain frog that Brent had. And so I'm now going through the list of the rain frogs to find if there is one that is so small. This one is only about 15 millimeters long, so about half an inch. So he's very, very small indeed. Anyway, we will identify him and then release him to eat. Well, not this particular one, because this one is too big. But there is a termite, a flying termite. This one, I'm afraid, has ceased to fly. That is not my fault. It lay on the ground, and its ability to fly is now completely over. And it will hopefully, when I release it into the ground, find a mate and start to make new termites. Now, I always love this time of the year because for me, this is the culmination of millions and millions of individuals' efforts. They try so desperately to produce these young alates, and like a sort of royal coming out, if you like, they emerge from the ground to great fanfare from the rest of the mound. Now, I'm just trying to see if I can get this thing in focus. Unfortunately, I'm failing miserably, which means I'm probably going to throw something in a temper fairly short. There we go. Oh, I know that. Oh dear, sorry about that. He really is not playing ball. Sorry about that. I think let's grab the microscope and use David's skills rather. Now he's about to shed his wings, so if he loses them while I'm holding them, I'm not too worried about it. He will still be released into the ground, where he will release his pheromones. There we go. There is the termite royal. Now what they do, if this is a female or a male, and I don't know which it is, and in fact I can't bear to watch this thing moving around like this anymore. Let's release him. I'm going to put him out. What they do is they flap their wings, if they're a female, and they exude a pheromone, and that pheromone travels up into the air and into the nasal passages of one of the males, and hopefully the male comes from a different mound from which the females come, so that there might be some genetic mixing, if you like, and then they mate. They go down onto the ground and shed their wings, and together they dig a little honeymoon tunnel, and they go down into the tunnel, whereupon the male and the female will start to dig a little chamber, and almost immediately the female will start to grow from something that big to eventually something that is that big. That is the size of her abdomen when she's finished growing, and from her abdomen will come roughly 15,000 eggs every day. And that is how the termite mound begins. She will make workers to start with and soldiers, and eventually she will make the new eggs that will become those alates. Now, obviously, there are far fewer termite mounds than there are the number of alates out here, which tells you that many of them, in fact, probably 95% of them get eaten by the predators out here. So you can see what a massively important part of the ecology these termites are, especially for animals like you're about to see with Brent Leo Smith.
Well, there we go. I said we're going to find some of the bigger eagles on the ground. Oh, isn't that cool? Isn't that a wet-looking eagle, that one? But they are absolutely loving this weather. As you can see, feasting upon all the termites. Now, especially when they're a bit damp, these true eagles can be a little difficult to see or to identify. So I want you to let me know which of the eagles you think this is. I was hoping he's going to pop out into the open again. Oh, he's there, but there he is. Hoppity hoppity hop. You can see the termite alates. So if you know which eagle this is, send your answers through to questions@WildEarthTV or hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Now, what you want to do is look carefully at the gape, how far the mouth extends to the eye. You want to look at the color of the eye itself and the bill, and also at the legs. Those are your main IDing features with the large brown eagles. As you can see, they don't look like they're designed. They're definitely designed to be more in flight than on the ground. They do look a little bit awkward as they prance around. Oh, he's got a wing stuck on his beak. Now, at this time of the year, if you get really big emergencies, you can get massive flocks of these birds. Now, just go back to the eagle there. Just wait till he comes out into the open. Now, David has guessed a steppe eagle. And David, I'm going to say probably not a steppe eagle. Now, the reason for that is when he pops out into the... Oh, off he goes. Where's he going? Oh, he's off. Now, David, from a steppe eagle point of view, remember the gape of a steppe eagle extends a very long way. So the gape extends beyond the eye or behind the eye. The gape of that eagle, to me was quite far forward, and the legs looked not as baggy as a steppe eagle legs. So I'm going to let everyone else have a guess, but it's not a steppe eagle, and we're going to continue on this beautiful wet morning. Now, remember I told you to look at the legs, and James, you said a snake eagle. A snake eagle does not have feathers on its legs. It's got bare legs, so it immediately rules out all the snake eagles. It's definitely an aquila, a true eagle. All of them have feathers all the way down their legs. Now, which one is it? We've ruled out steppe. There's a couple of others still to rule out. Now, a lot of different types of eagles have different color morphs. That was a dark morph. A pale morph is very, 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 very light. Safari Dean was wondering. So out of the eagles we get here that have pale morphs, Wahlbergs, tawny, booted, and very, very rarely in steppe or lesser spotted. But that was a dark morph. So dark chocolate brown, not sort of a pale color. Oh, something walked there, but I can't see what under the rain. Oh, it seems like because it's a little bit wet, it's confused a lot of people, and it wasn't a lesser spotted eagle. This, and they were very, very, very skinny feathers on the legs, and they've also got a very pale eye, and that had a dark eye. Desmond, what did you think it was?
It looked like an eagle.
It was an eagle, according to Desmond. Yes, Desmond, you are 50% correct. It wasn't a crowned eagle either. Crowned eagles are very, very rare in this area, and generally, if you are going to find them, they're going to be around major river systems, which we don't have any of here. They're more of a forest or riverine species, the African crowned eagle. Wow, guys, booted eagle? I'm afraid not. I think just because it's a little bit damp, it's catching everyone. It's the smallest of the true eagles, or I suppose booted's also about the same size though, that we get here. Oh, hello guys. Lady, Lone Wolf, and Anastasia say, oh, they're off on the move. A tawny eagle. No, that is one of the bigger eagles we get here. Oh, there we go. All the little tails up. There's a little boy. Morning, Kudus. They're just running for the joy of the morning. They're looking quite happy and relaxed. Okay, off they move. I think a lot of you out there are going to kick yourselves when I tell you which eagle that was. Now hopefully we have a little bit of big cat luck. Well done, Paul and Mary. It was indeed a slightly bedraggled, wet Wahlberg's eagle. Dark morph of the Wahlberg's eagle. Well done, Paul and Mary. I think everyone got so used to me asking the difficult questions that we overlooked the obvious. What have we got here? Oh, buffalo, but before the rain. Hippo before the rain. So just make out the underlining track, almost impossible to see. And just making out the general shape, there's no defined lines. Now, we're slowly moving down Cheetah cut line at the moment, hoping to find whatever might be out there. While we do that, let's go see what Jamie's up to.
I'm glad to hear that Brent's birds of prey will sit still long enough for you to be quizzed on them, because so far Brian and myself have seen 3, and all of them have flown away the minute I tried to reposition to get a view of them through the front of the vehicle. Now, I don't quite know what it is about me, but they, oh my word, termites everywhere. I don't quite know what it is about me, but they just don't want to sit still. But I've seen 1 Wahlbergs, but also 1 what looked like a juvenile goshawk, which would have been really nice had we managed to get it on camera, but it actually flew away before I even had a proper chance to look at it. And so we are proceeding slowly but surely towards Treehouse Dam. We're not really looking for anything in particular. Of course, we're always hoping to bump into the Queen of Djuma, the female leopard Karula, while we are in this area. But actually, we don't have anywhere in particular to go. We're just looking for various things that have come out after the rain. And so far, the dominant species is, of course, termites. What a lovely question from Diane. There's a good idea for a place to go. Diane, you were wondering about what the ibis family, the hardy-dar ibis family, might be doing in this weather, and whether or not Mom will keep the chicks under her wings. Yes, probably she will. She'll probably shelter them, she'll probably sit over them, and keep them as dry as possible. I'm not quite sure exactly what stage of development they're at, but they probably haven't got, in fact, they definitely won't have fully waterproof feathers yet. And chicks are, like all baby animals, they are very sensitive to sudden changes in temperature. So the last thing they need to do is get soaked to the skin and then have cold air sort of blowing over them. So yes, Mummy will be keeping them as sheltered as possible. I'm just trying to work out the logistics of how we could manage to get that nest on camera with this roof. I'm not sure. I don't think we're going to manage it, are we, Brian? We could try. We could try, definitely. I was thinking about the Wahlbergs as well. Well, I have to say that Mr. and Mrs. Wahlberg haven't been very present in that nest of theirs at all. I haven't seen them sitting there often. I don't know whether they've moved nest sites or if they've been unsuccessful. But yes, having a look at birds' nests is definitely a nice way to spend a morning. Brian and myself were just talking about, wondering whether or not birds actually enjoy this weather. Probably not the driving rain part, but if they enjoy, they must enjoy the after effects with all of the insects and things to eat. Oh, itsy bitsy terrapin. Oh dear, hold on. Hold on a moment. While I try and reposition for this itsy bitsy terrapin. Oh, it's going. It's highly mobile. I can't see where Brian can see. Oh, it's gone. It's gone. There we go. Hello, little terrapin. That's why we are driving through puddles very, very slowly. Your head is too big for your body, little terrapin. You've got some growing to do. It's a tiny little terrapin. It's only about the size of my palm. Tiny, tiny. And hide. You can't see me. Oh, no, off again. Stumbling over the obstacles in its path. That's a very young terrapin. And that's why it's always absolutely critical when we're in weather like this to drive through puddles very slowly. And as long as you drive through them slowly, the terrapins will be absolutely fine. They surf, and you never find squashed terrapins in puddles unless people are really driving too fast. But I've never seen a squashed terrapin in a puddle. Where did you go? It's sort of in that gap. Oh, no, this is a bit tricky. It's somewhere there. There it is, right in the middle of your screen there, at the back. It's very important to drive through the puddles slowly to just give terrapins a chance to surf in your wake, essentially. And the amazing thing about it, and that's why you've got to be careful, is even if it has just rained, if it has just started raining, if the puddles have just started to form, there's a good chance there will already be a terrapin in them. Because they spend a lot of the time estivating underneath the surface of the ground. Oh, little feet. Half-webbed, half-clawed feet. Fascinating in between a tortoise and a turtle. Oh, back into the vegetation. And Angelina, you wanted to know if they are soft-shelled. No, they're not. They are hard-shelled. All of our chelonians that we have in South Africa, which range from the tortoises, the leopard tortoises, the the Speaks Hinged Tortoise, sorry, I'm distracted, I heard an Amur Falcon. The Speaks Hinged Tortoise, our Marsh Terrapin, our Serrated Hinged Terrapins, and then of course the turtles that occur on our coastline. They're all hard-shelled chelonians. It was surprisingly difficult to say. But yes, all of them have hard shells. The difference, of course, for those of you that perhaps linguistically call all of these things a turtle, a tortoise is land-based. Where's this bird now? I can still hear it. Tortoises are land-based with feet. Turtles are water-based with flippers and only come onto the surface when they are laying their eggs on beaches. And terrapins are kind of somewhere in between, mostly water-based. Brian, I don't know if you can see this bird from the roof. Yes, you will be able to. It is in the large tree on the right. I think this is... no, that's a Cape turtle dove. Drat. That is not what we are looking for. Sorry, not that a Cape turtle dove isn't lovely, but it's not what I was looking for at all. Oh. It was in that tree! Aww. It was in the tree, it just flew away. It looked like a little falcon. In the rain, Tracy, you wanted to know if perhaps birds worry about their feathers getting saturated and will it affect flying. Tracy, no, they don't worry too much. They are actually not completely waterproof, but largely waterproof as a result of a type of oil that they are constantly spreading over their feathers. They spread their preen oil across their feathers with their bill, and that's why they groom each and every single day. And that will actually serve to waterproof the feathers. Sorry, hold on a moment. I cannot... Shh. Lots of conversation happening in my ear. Apologies. It was far too loud. Oh, there's a tree. Found a tree. Sorry, Brian. So no, the preen oil will keep them waterproof. Interestingly enough, there is one animal, one bird, that does not spread preen oil and in any way waterproof its feathers because it goes underwater, because the preen oil actually makes a bird quite buoyant, and that is the African darter. And I don't have any books with me because I had no desire to have them get soaked. So the African darter is a bird that you find around water. It fishes, it dives underneath the surface of the water, and that is one of the birds that doesn't have feathers covered with preen oil. And what it does is it will allow its feathers to become waterlogged. And then after that, obviously, it can't fly initially. So what it needs to do is go and sit in the sun. And you often, when you come to dams, you find darters all sitting on branches like this, with their wings out drying, because they actually have to physically dry themselves off before they can fly. So that is very unusual in the bird world. And of course, the ultimate swimmers being penguins, which we won't see here on our live drive unless we have one very lost penguin, but we will not be seeing penguins here. Oh, those of you with kids will know that on mornings like this morning, when your kids can't go out and play, you have to come up with alternative solutions to keep them thoroughly entertained. And I believe that James is planning an arts and crafts session.
Behold, everybody, an aeroplane made from a map. I think this is a rather fine aeroplane, and as Jamie says, it is of course raining, and so one must occupy oneself if one cannot go out into the field. Now, I have been looking around, scouring the landscape for things, but it started raining again, so I came back inside and I made a very fine aeroplane. And of course, this is made from a map, and when you're a child, and those of you who are parents, pay heed to what I'm going to say to you now, because you will remember it from when you were little. No piece of paper is ever hard enough or big enough to make the kind of aeroplane that you want to make. This, in all my 40 years, is the best possible piece of paper I've ever found for making an aeroplane, simply because it is hard and it is large. Now, when it dries, I will try and fly this aeroplane. It's still slightly saggy, I suppose, but I'm going to call this the Concorde. All right, the Concorde is going to go over here. Here we are. Very fine aeroplane, that, isn't it? Now, I didn't just decide to do that. Let's have a look here at the map. And I'm not going to draw on this map because we have to save it for our TV show. But I'm just going to show you what's going on. Right. As you all know, many of you will know, we traverse 3 reserves. Djuma, there. Arathusa, there. And Cheetah Plains there. Now, this is quite cleverly drawn to make you think that they're all kind of contiguous next to each other. Cheetah Plains is actually quite a long way off to the east, and it's a bit smaller than the other two, but it is kind of the idea of where we are traversing. Brent Leo Smith is currently lurking around in the middle of the reserve, somewhere around there. And he's looking for the lions. Oh, sorry, he's the one at Buffelshoek Dam. So he's actually around Cheetah Plains over there. And I think Jamie was around the Hardy-Dars nest, which is the twin dams down there. So that's where they are on this extent. We are over here, just next to the, or in between the camps, if you like. Very pleasant, of course, under our tent. We're not getting wet at all. David, in fact, has taken off his rain jacket on account of the fact that he is not in the slightest bit wet or cold anymore. This is a good thing. Oh, and what I did try and do while you were away from here, I tried to catch the snake that we found inside the technical box. Unfortunately, the snake managed to get into a nook that I was unable to retrieve it from. So I will continue trying to get it, and hopefully by the end of the show, we will have the snake for you. I'm modifying my identification of it slightly. I think it may well have been a red-lipped herald. Mildly venomous, not very big, quite cold today, so it won't hopefully attack me. But fear not, everybody. I will fearlessly try and capture the snake for your edification and entertainment during the course of the morning. Anyway, that is the state of play as it is. Now, normally what happens is that you expect the day to sort of dry out a bit by this time. It has a little bit, but it is still sort of dripping rain. So we are not going to be going out on a bushwalk anytime soon. Up on the top of that tree there, David, I believe there is a dove. Can you see it? Yes. And that is the only piece of wildlife other than the termites and the frog that we've seen that I have managed to identify from the tent this morning. And I also think to tell you that the frog that we were looking at, I believe, was a rain frog. I actually think it was a baby bushveld rain frog. And what's interesting about what Brent told you there, remember he said that they come out as froglets. They don't make tadpoles. So they're very unusual frogs. Now, normally, if you find a small frog that looks like an adult, of course, you assume it is an adult. Because if it wasn't an adult, it would have a little tail. And if it was even more juvenile, it would be a tadpole. Well, the bushveld rain frog, of course, they are not like that. They come out as little froglets. They look like the adult form. And so when you find a tiny little thing like that, about half an inch long, with a pug face like that one had, I'm going to go with little bushveld rain frog froglet. And Julia, you guessed that as well. You agree with me that it was a junior bushveld rain frog. So that's marvelous. Good. I'm glad we're in agreement. How marvelous. Let's go back into the tent. James, you're wondering which frog species takes the longest to metamorphosize from a tadpole to adult. I'm going to say probably the biggest one. I don't know, to be honest, but I think probably the biggest one, so I'm going to go with probably the bullfrogs. They probably take the longest. I mean, they start off as tadpoles that size and eventually end up as frogs about that size, which, I mean, that's almost sort of 8 inches in length. So probably the African bullfrog. And in fact, something is coming up. It's reminding me in the really kind of back of my mind here that the African bullfrog takes an inordinately long time. I'll do some research next time you go into the field, and I'll find out for you. And then Chai Connie, you're wondering where the frogs hide when it's not raining, when it's hot. Normally under the ground, sometimes in puddles, sometimes on trees. So the foam nest frog, which many of you will have seen before, or you certainly have seen their nests, is a grey frog. And again, I can try and find you a picture of the foam nest frog. It's a greyish frog, and it's also called the grey tree frog because of that. And there is one very famous one here that lives in Jamie's bathroom, for example, Jamie and Brent's bathroom. That's where it lives. And there was one living here not too long ago as well. So that's quite nice. And then you will find them, where else would you find them? Under the ground, in trees, and in puddles. And then, of course, when the puddles go away, when you have no more puddles, then the frogs either go into estivation, which means that they will have to find a tree hole or a hole in the ground or Jamie's bathroom. And then and some of them will only last a season, I suppose. They won't sort of survive beyond one season. There is the foam nest frog, and that's the most obvious one that we see when it isn't wet. They like to live in sort of nooks and crannies and bathrooms and that sort of thing. Very nice. Oh, Jen, you're wondering if there are any bright-coloured frogs. Well, they're brightish. The ornate frog is an obvious example. I feel bad looking at my phone while I'm talking to you, but I assure you I'm not checking messages or social media. I'm trying to find you interesting frogs. The banded rubber frog that Brent spoke about is also quite... I'll show you him. There he is. He's quite bright. That's him coming out of a tree hole. So that's the banded rubber frog. He's quite bright. But the ornate frog is a beautiful thing if I can find him. And the painted reed frog is the most obviously bright-coloured one. They are just gorgeous. Look at that. They'll be all over the place and make a beautiful call. In fact, I'll play it for you. Sing, sing. Very nice. They do that all night long. And then I just want to try and find you the ornate frog, which I'm failing. Mind warp, while I keep trying to find the ornate frog, you want to know if we get leopard frogs out here. No, we don't get leopard frogs. I don't know what a leopard frog is, to be honest. Sounds quite interesting. Look, if I type in search, leopard frog, no, but we do get the leopard toad. Now, I don't know if that's what you were perhaps talking about. The eastern leopard toad is very common in these parts. There he is. And he makes a very obvious call as well. That's the eastern leopard toad. Is that what you meant, Mind Warp, perhaps? But we don't get a leopard frog here. No. Right. That is enough of the frogs. Except... now... this is a very good question from Sylvia, who's wondering about red and black frogs and how they learn not to eat them. Let's go away from the frog, Sylvia, and quickly go to the monarch butterfly. Now, the monarch butterfly is also orange and black, and throughout the animal kingdom, that coloration of orange and black and yellow and sometimes a bit of white is indicative of poison, toxin, and it's a warning to predators called aposematic coloration, as Brent mentioned earlier on. Now, what happens with the monarch is that as soon as a bird ingests it, it vomits it up again. It spits it up because those, I think they're cardioglycosides that have been absorbed by the monarch's larva, immediately affect the bird. It can taste that they're not right and it vomits them up. Now, whether or not the butterfly survives that experience, probably about a 50-50 chance of it surviving, is not really relevant to the species, of course, because the rest of them can survive. And so it's still an advantage to the individual to be poisonous because it's probably got a 50% chance of surviving being eaten. And once they've all become poisonous, of course, then birds will avoid them. Now, I suspect with the banded rubber frog, it's a fairly similar thing. I know somebody whose dog caught one of those banded rubber frogs and spat it out immediately and then started foaming at the mouth and didn't show any really bad effects after that. So I don't think they're toxic enough to cause death. Well, I mean, I suppose if you swallow the whole thing, maybe. But I think they taste so bad, they probably create a sensation in the mouth that is so appalling that animals just spit them out. So I think it is largely a sort of trial and error thing, but I do think that throughout the animal kingdom, that red and black coloration makes a huge difference. Animals kind of understand it from genetic memory, I suppose, that they should avoid colors like that. But largely, of course, if it was to kill the animal, so for example, if you ingested a banded rubber frog and it killed the predator straight away, no one would ever learn that they shouldn't eat that. It would be unlikely. It's much more effective for them to be slightly toxic so that spit it out quickly and then know not to eat that. And I think that's probably how it works. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Let's have another look outside and see if we can't find something else out here. No. Jeffrey in Texas, you're wondering about salamanders and whether we get them here. Jeffrey, while I look and see if I can't find you something of great interest here on the ground, you want to know if we get salamanders here and what kind we get. We don't get them here. And I don't know, Jeffrey, that salamanders aren't only found in... I'm going to say, I mean, I know you get them in Britain, for example, and newts and that sort of thing, but I don't know that you get them in Africa at all. So I'm not sure why that would be, but I don't think we get salamanders in this part of the world at all. So we definitely don't get any here. Oh, come on, there must be a flower here. I found one earlier. Here we go. Don't know what it is, but I'll come and show it to you anyway. And I'll hopefully go and retrieve one or two more things for the next time when I see you. There is a flower, and it's one of these nondescript flowers. And what I think is interesting about these nondescript flowers is that although they have no color and almost no scent at all, they clearly have some way of attracting pollinators. I'm going to smell this one, but I don't think it's going to smell at all. No, it's not going to smell at all. So I'm not sure what pollinates this thing, but it's something that finds it attractive. I will throw that away. Oh, Cindy, yes we do. Yes we do. You want to know if we get ferns out here? Cindy, we do. And where you find them is normally growing at the base, often of a silver cluster leaf tree. And they're not the kind of ferns, there's one species that we get here. They're not the kind of ferns that look particularly fern-like. You know, they're not in great, sort of those great, what do you call them? It's not called a leaf, it's called a frond. There we go. Is it? Is it called a frond? It might be called a frond. They're not sort of those long things. You don't find them in mossy areas. You find them out in the open like this. And I found one on walk the other day, and we had a little chat about it. And it was under a silver cluster leaf tree. And I think that they grow, David, keep me posted on my audio. I think that they grow off the leaves, at least the roots of the silver cluster leaf tree. I will do my very best, Cindy, to find you the fern. And if I don't, I will most certainly find you a picture of it during the course of the next segment or so. Right, while I'm searching around here, Jamie has an update for you. I'm not sure if anyone's managed to find anything in the way of cat tracks, but Jamie will tell you now.
No sign of any cat tracks, I'm afraid, although it would take a seriously deep step, I think, to leave a footprint at the moment. There is, however, one Birmingham boy in Buffelshoek, which unfortunately is to the north of our boundary, so we can't go and have a look at him. I enjoy watching lions in the rain. There's always something quite atmospheric about the whole scene. Their manes and they're just, it's very, very pretty. We're still continuing our search for the Queen Karula. I'm pretty sure this is the beginning of my superhero origin story, because my fingers have got so pruny that I'm pretty sure that by the end of the drive I'm going to be able to climb up vertical planes, like a gecko. Maybe gecko girl. No, not prune girl, Kirsty. Gecko girl. Gecko girl has a much better ring to it than prune girl. Prune girl, keeping you regular. No. We'll go with gecko girl. Just climb up window panes in the same way geckos do. I know how she loves geckos. They're one of her favorite things to look at. And speaking of favorite things to look at, yesterday we had the most incredible sighting of a baboon spider. And I have to tell you that baboon spider has the best name. I went and spoke to Steph about it, and then we looked it up afterwards. It is called a starburst baboon spider. How cool is that for a name? A starburst baboon spider. And Steph says it's only the third time in his life he's encountered or presumably heard somebody encounter one of these baboon spiders. It's the South African equivalent of a tarantula. I was going to show you a screenshot so that for those of you that missed the bushwalk yesterday, you would know what it looked like. I was going to show you a screenshot, but unfortunately I left my devices at home on the basis that they might get soaking. So I don't have it with me, but maybe some of you who were watching yesterday could share the screenshots of that particular spider. And there we go. Lacey was asking about our spiders and whether or not there are any that are more active in this sort of weather. I actually think most of them will be trying to hide away and shelter a little bit, because obviously raindrops, all I can think of when I think of rain and insects is it a bug's life? Yes, it is. It's a bug's life where the rain starts to fall, and it's basically, for them, disastrous. They all have to go running and scurrying for cover. I got out of the vehicle a little bit earlier, and I did see some spiders scurrying about, and I did see a daytime solifuge. I suppose it's worth the risk of the rain, because it's not too heavy, to go and see if they can't gather up some termites, because there's lots of different species of termites coming out. A lot of them are quite tiny, much like that giant land snail that I just drove past. Hold on. Okay, I'm trying to figure out the logistics of this again. Make sure I'm not about to reverse into an oncoming car with the roof.
Hi. We are busy with probably one of the most difficult endeavors in the bush after rain, but we're doing quite well so far. I've been tracking, I'm presuming, one of the Birmingham boys, and a lot of it's guesswork. And you can see where I've drawn that line in the sand there. So, despite what a lot of people think, that after rain is easy to track, it's not at all. It's actually much harder. Now, what happens is the rain compacts the soil, so it makes it very, very difficult. But there we go. These are quite fresh, so I'm saying in the last hour or so, and you can just make out the toes here. There's the front foot, back foot on top. Maybe we'll find some lions. But it is a very slow process tracking in the rain. And I mean, I can see another track up there, and then they just disappear because he goes onto some hard ground. But we've got a good idea, a general direction. So we are going to continue on. From what I can see, he hasn't crossed down towards Hyena Road yet. Okay. It is quite fun to have a challenge though, and tracking lions in the rain is always a challenge. One lion is even more challenging. Easier to track a pride, of course. Tax. So Taxon's helping me. Tax, the last track I've got is still heading west, but from Hyena Road on the fire break, and then I can't find anything to the west of that. but there's no sign of him going down Hyena Road. So I'm going to keep checking the fire break towards Gari Katlan. Okay, so Tax is just over there, so he's going to check the main boundary. We're going to look carefully here on the fire break. I keep half expecting him to see him napping under a bush around here. Okay, I'm going to put my concentration hat on and try find us a lion. While we do that, let's go back to Commander Bond in the tent.
Right, I found you two. Oh gosh, hang on, I've just torn it in half. Wait 1 second. Can you hear me, David? Okay, you can hear me. You may not be able to see me, everybody, but I am doing my best to find you interesting things. Oh, I found something else here. Hang on. David can't join me here, of course, because he will become wet, and that is no good at all. But I have found a fungus, which I'm going to bring to you. And I've also found a number of gossamer wings, like the wings of fairies, which you shall look at under the microscope. See how fearlessly I'm sacrificing my dryness, David, for the cause. I'm so fearless. Here I am. Hello. Right, we have a great collection of rain-bespattered things. And what I don't want to do is have to show you these gossamer wings that I found in amongst my now very soiled fingernails. Okay. How can we put this over here? Sorry, David. Sorry, David, I do apologize for moving around like this and making your job so very hard. Ah. There we go. Have a look at that. There is the venation on a very small termite's wing. So the one I showed you earlier, which tried to escape very enthusiastically, was, well, probably 4 or 5 times the size of that. This is a very tiny one. And like most insects, the wing is kept taut by the hydraulic pressure in those sort of veins, I guess, through which hemolymph gets pumped. Hemolymph, of course, is an insect version of blood. And that is what we talk about when we talk about gossamer wings. Isn't that nice? There's the leading edge, and then the back edge. Cool. Right, so that is a termite's wing, and just the one thing you can see there, of course, is that it was torn off by the termite itself. So you can see the flesh there. I'm just going to see if I can focus in on that a bit better. You can see the kind of termite flesh there, where it was attached to the termite's skin. That looks quite painful, but there were thousands and thousands of these where I found them, and they were just underneath the log under which I found the next little artifact. It's not artifact. Now, Judy H. keeps pointing this out to me. What we have in here are not artifacts at all. Artifacts are of deep historical value and nature. Perhaps samples is a better term. Look at this. Isn't that cool? Now these mushrooms are growing out, oh my goodness, they're growing out of the top of a piece of rotting wood, and they are the same, it's the same rotting wood that the termite colony from which that wing emerged is living. So they're living in there. Most of those termites didn't get very far from home, unfortunately. That's quite cool. But we have something else just sort of sitting here. It's quite a... I don't think it's a termite. I don't know what it is. Oh, hang on. Let me do this. It's much better when I put it on my lap, and then you don't all get seasick while we try and look here. There it is. that is a termite. I think that probably was, at one stage of its life, a flying termite. And I think it's lost its wings, and now it's trying to find a friend. In fact, you can see exactly where the wings were. Can you see that? You can see the 4 little places where its 4 wings attached. And I suspect this is a female termite, and I suspect that because the abdomen is so long, and it would eventually have sort of expanded. I will release her, of course, but it would have eventually expanded into that great big abdomen that produces so many eggs every day. Isn't that cool? Now, Leopold, you're wondering about the relationship between termites and ants, and as you've correctly surmised, it's not a good relationship. They are not related at all. They do share and compete for resources in some cases. But remember, all termites are herbivorous. They don't eat meat. And many ants are not. Some ants are herbivorous, like the leafcutter ants, for example, but many, of course, are meat-eating, and many of them like to eat termites. In fact, some of the greatest killers of termites in the world are ants. We witnessed, Brian and I, the most tremendous battle going on the other day, where we dislodged a branch, and in it there was a battle going on where some drop-tailed ants were carrying off tiny little worker termites and probably the termite larvae and going down into their own nest and putting them there, where no doubt they were in for a fairly rough time of it. I think they were going to be eaten by the drop-tailed ants. It seems that ants are by and large the aggressors and far more successful at when there is a battle. But it doesn't seem to affect the termite numbers greatly, or who knows what percentage of them are devoured by ants. Termites apparently still make up more per hectare in animal biomass than any other animal. So just think about that. There are more tons of termite per hectare of land than there are any other kind of herbivorous animal. So you can combine the elephants, you can combine the combined weight of all the impala out here, all the buffalo. The termite mass is greater than all of that. So, I mean, although the ants do eat them and cop them a horrible beating every so often, it doesn't seem to make a huge difference. Right, so that's a very good question. Thank you, Leopold. Then, I'm just going to quickly put this under the microscope and try and get a nice picture of it while I answer the question from Frank and Alice, who apparently, I just want to look at those water droplets on the silver cluster leaf. Frank and Alice, you're wondering if snakes eat termites. Yes, certain species of snakes will absolutely eat termites. I'm trying to think of one now off the top of my head. I think you'll probably find that things like brown house snakes would probably eat termites. I think you'll find that all the little snakes, especially things, perhaps like a striped-bellied sand snake, for example, would probably eat a termite or two. Most things, that even though they might not necessarily eat termites by choice all the time, most things out here, from all the birds, so a good example would be something like a crested barbet, which is known as a frugivore. It eats fruit. They will definitely eat termites when they're out here right now. And many of those eagles, the Wahlberg's eagle that you saw this morning, eating termites, is not by default a termite eater. They'll eat reptiles and small mammals normally, but when termites are around, they'll be eaten. And I think you'll find for many of the reptiles, that is the same thing. Now let's just look here. Oh, look how beautiful at that. And Heidi, you were hoping to see some water drops. There is a beautiful water drop on the hairs of the silver cluster leaf. You can see, of course, why it's called a silver cluster leaf. Isn't that beautiful? Sometime it's not about all the death and destruction that goes on out here, David. Sometimes it's about all these little beautiful things. The world or land of the fairies, where it's all so small. I don't know why I'm talking like that. Please excuse me. I just think it's beautiful. Isn't that stunning? It really does take you into another world, the microscopic world. You can imagine a little ant. Imagine you are the size of an ant walking amongst the water droplets there. And through those hairs, it must be like walking on silk, I imagine. Very peaceful. Good. Okay, we'll put that back. And we shall probably go on another hunting expedition to see what else we can find. I can tell you that the rain does seem to be stopping. Now, Tracy, Dayton, and Mary, many of you are asking how animals are able to avoid colored frogs and aposematically colored animals if they are colorblind. Tracy, remember that colorblindness it's relative, so not all animals, it's a spectrum. You're not completely colorblind and then you switch a switch and you become able to see color. And also, it's the contrast. I think that's what they're probably looking for. So, for example, a colorblind human being cannot differentiate between purple and green. And if you want to find out if you're colorblind, just Google colorblind test, and you'll come up with those tests where they draw numbers in purple in a green background in little bubbles. And if you're colorblind, you can't see the number there. And if you're not, then you can. But that's purple and green. Now, black and orange is clearly sufficiently far apart for the contrast to be such that even an animal that doesn't see in glorious technicolor like us is able to recognize. Birds, remember, do see in color. So the classic example of the lilac-breasted roller trying to eat the monarch butterfly is a really good one. There's no doubt that the lilac-breasted roller can see the orange and the black. Many animals cannot see that, for example. So a genet, I imagine, is fairly colorblind, and they would certainly eat frogs. Would they avoid a banded rubber frog? Definitely. They can probably hear it, and I guarantee you that they can see a different contrast between those bands, the orange bands, which reflect a lot of light, and the black of the frog, which would obviously absorb all light completely. And if you're walking around at night in the moonlight and you happen to be a genet, I think you'd pick that up quite clearly. Right, Jamie is still knocking about the place. I have no idea where she is. I have no idea what she's going to look at, but she's going to tell you now.
I am on Weaver's Nest. Oh, darn. I am on Weaver's Nest Road, looking at one very bedraggled black-headed oriole. Thank you, Brian. That was cheap as that was touch and go there for a second. And it was making the most peculiar golden oriole... What is wrong with me? Black-headed oriole call, which made me think it was a golden oriole. It is not, though. It is a black-headed oriole, and there is a termite that's made its way into my shirt. Sorry, hold on. Cold hands. I think it's out. We'll find out shortly when it starts to wriggle.